Welcome to the Nourishing Africa podcast. Today, we'll be discussing how entrepreneurs can create wealth through African tropical vegetables in 2020. We are joined by Victor Afari Sefa, Regional Director for West and Central Africa, responsible for coastal and humid regions, and Ralph Roothaert, Senior Scientist who's been leading the work on healthy diets at the World Vegetable Center. The World Vegetable Center conducts research, builds networks, and carries out training and promotion activities to raise awareness of the role of vegetables for improved health and global poverty alleviation. Thank you, Ralph and Victor, for joining us. Studies have shown that vegetables and fruit consumption is far below the recommended rate in Africa, and it's often believed that the general high prices of fruits and vegetables are the major barriers to this. Do you agree? And what other factors are at play in this?
All right. Well, thank you very much for that question, Iffy. Yes, it's true that vegetable prices, particularly high prices, can be an impediment for vegetable consumption and for fruits and vegetables together, because about 47 to 73% of the budget of the average person living in sub-Saharan Africa is spent on food. But out of that food, only 3 to 13% of the total household budget is spent on fruits and vegetables. So there is some room to maneuver. However, obviously for the richer, it is not such a big challenge, but the poorest are suffering much more. But there's also other factors, I think, that we have to consider. Apart from the affordability, I always look at the 4 A's: affordability, availability, accessibility, and acceptability. And so we shouldn't forget availability as well, particularly seasonality. So while fruits can be very inhibiting during the seasons of shortage, it might be more available during the glut season. So it's actually that fruit consumption is not stable throughout the year. And also, different people have different access to the fruits and vegetables. Typically in the capital cities, you have supermarkets where there's plenty of fruits and vegetables available for the medium to high income groups. There's also these big markets where you can have an array of vegetables. But sometimes in the rural areas, in remote areas, that accessibility is far too, it's very far to find. And then lastly, acceptability. Some people love vegetables, they are grown up with vegetables, others do not. And even within a household, you'll find that the parents, they have developed some preference from bitter tasting vegetables, but children don't like it. Children all over the world actually don't like bitter vegetables. So you have to look at all these different A's, I think.
Yeah, I think that I agree with lots of the points and arguments that Ralph has raised in response to this question. But if you really want to look at the issue critically in terms of what you mentioned here as pricing, then I think the major issue has been also a lack of awareness of the nutritional importance of fruits and vegetables, which I think Ralph also alluded to. Because if you want to talk of pricing, yes, but if you are aware of what the triple burden of malnutrition is, then of course the cost of treating these conditions are much more expensive than just buying vegetables and fruits. So I think that in terms of real cost, we need to look more into these and not just looking at price.
And building on what Ralph had said about the nature of and behavior of people, particularly when it comes to their eating habits. It's very hard to change eating habits or develop eating habits, particularly when you're not accustomed to eating vegetables and fruits within the household. What more can we do to increase the amount of vegetables and fruit consumptions in households across the continent?
Yeah, again, that's a great challenge. I think first very aware of whom's eating behavior you're trying to change. Are they adults or are they young people? Are they poor or are they rich? And I'm saying that because we see a big change in terms of eating patterns. When people move to the urban areas, they have less time. People go for food that is cool, that is considered cool, particularly by the younger population. But together with that eating habit, we see a moving away from the healthy traditional diets that have vegetables to the fried foods, high carbon, high salt, fast foods, which hardly have any vegetable components in it. So if we, depending on whom you want to target, for instance, the youth, I think you would have to be very clever and move away and move with the youth in terms of what connects their attention, like using social media, uh, providing recipes of easy, fast to cook food, or even using ambassadors. Like in Uganda, we used Moses Golola, who is a kickboxer, and he's well known for his kickboxing, of course, and he's a celebrity. But he's also always promoting healthy foods on his Facebook and other social media, and that makes the youth tick. And those are some of the avenues you can use to change food habits.
Okay, so building up on what Ralph said, I think there are two levels here. One is what I already mentioned, is the promoting the nutritional importance of vegetables and fruits, so that people become more aware that it is good for them to eat, and not just eating it as a kind of a snack or something like that. So once that goes, but then complementary with that is actually how to make the vegetables more appealing to eat. It's not easy to convince everyone to eat vegetables as they will eat some of the staples. So there are different levels, and like Ralph said, depending on the age category or the context, whether it's the rural or urban, different approaches are used. In World Vegetable Center, we have done in the past, community rallies, for example, to promote importance of vegetables. We've done also radio programming with Farm Radio International in Tanzania, as far as I remember. We've also done cooking shows, yeah, just like what Ralph is saying, using celebrities, but also using the youth, doing vegetable cooking shows, competitions, and things, just to promote this. And this is where we do all these cooking recipes, different types of recipes that are more appealing, like preparing pumpkin cakes, amaranth soup, or pumpkin soup, or things that are more appealing. There are also instances where, for example, you can mix some vegetables with fruits. For example, pineapple mixed with amaranth, form of a fruit vegetable cocktail, so to make it a bit more sweeter for children, for example. So there are several approaches that have been done. And again, when you talk of children, Ralph, of course, has been working very well with a lot of things, the Healthy Diets program. We do a lot of school gardening. Now, the idea here is that if you teach children how to eat vegetables right from their childhood, it becomes part of them. And I have had example when I first joined the World Vegetable Center. I traveled with my colleagues in Asia. And when we were in Indonesia, for example, my colleagues from Taiwan, when we were served meal, they will not eat if there were no vegetables. And I was surprised at that time. But this is it because they have learned right from their childhood how to eat vegetables, and they have become part of their meal. And they know the importance of what it's supposed to be in terms of a balanced diet. So I think, yeah, the behavioral changes cuts across different age sectors, and it's important to know what strategy works within a particular context.
That's great.
Yeah. I think it's also important to know that the World Vegetable Center has a breeding program and sometimes looks specifically at the taste element of vegetables. I think most people know that when you breed vegetables, you breed for yield characteristics and disease resistance, but you can actually also breed and select for whether a vegetable tastes well or doesn't. And there's some particular leafy vegetables such as duruma, African nightshade, that doesn't have that bitter taste, and our breeders have selected that, and we found it is particularly appealing to children who need it a lot, obviously.
Building on the breeding aspect, I mean, there are often times where critics will say that if you're modifying or if you are enhancing something out of its natural form, it's no longer has its nutritional value or it's lost. And oftentimes some people say that's a myth. Could you debunk that in furthering what you're saying about trying to breed vegetables and fruits for better taste and all?
Sure, yeah, that definitely has had its impact. Over the past 1 or 2 centuries, the traditional vegetable breeding has been focusing on yield, so kilograms per meter or tons per hectare. And so what you're actually breeding for, if you're only looking at the yield, is volume, but you don't know what's in that volume. And what has actually happened, that volume is mainly water. We had our previous director general, he actually called some of these vegetables water standing up, because all that's what's there, those huge cabbages, they're full of water. So I think we've reached a stage now where people are becoming more aware of nutrition, and where we are actually looking at quality rather than volume. And so we not only want the nutrition, we breed for nutrition, but we also breed for taste. And very often they are related. If you breed for more concentrations of mineral and vitamins, you'll find that the taste also becomes better.
So moving on to the business aspect of growing fruits and vegetables, Victor, the majority of consumers in Africa live in rural areas and grow their own foods and crops and vegetables. Does it make sense to promote vegetable business if people can produce their own consumption?
Well, the point is that yes, a lot of people currently live in the rural areas. That is true, but we've also had projections where it shows that by 2050, we'll have about 56% of population living in urban areas. So that means that agriculture needs to adjust itself in terms of being more efficient and not just producing food from the rural areas to the urban centers. So that's one thing. Now, having said that, what is the real issue in terms of achieving this goal? So what really needs to be done is that vegetables are very easy to grow, yeah, but the fact is that they are very difficult to grow well. Everybody can start getting into vegetables, but then once you start planting, you have pest and disease, you have safety issues. So that's where the specialization is needed. So yes, there should still be some specialization, and even in urban centers, yeah, there's now the move towards more protected cultivation, to avoid pest and diseases, and of course, even in some areas, not yet in Africa, but they're already getting into vegetable integration. Or vertical gardens. So we, for example, are promoting things like sack gardening already in urban centers, and of course, greenhouse production, all that. So just to debunk the fact that it's not only going to come from the rural areas. And then, of course, in terms of business, yes, vegetables are a very good opportunity for business, especially the youth, because they have very high farm gate values per unit. Compare them to maize or any other. You don't need too much land to grow vegetables. The other thing that is attractive is that it has a very short growing cycle. I mean, talking of leafy vegetables, some of them within 8 weeks are already matured, and the maximum for the fruit and root vegetables is 3 to 4 months. So that is a very high turnover. Within a short time, people can easily grow and produce vegetables and make money, particularly for youth who are looking for non-existent jobs in sub-Saharan Africa. So I think that aspect of specialization is there. And of course, they are also related backward and forward linkages, to industry services. There are a lot of people who can involved not directly in the production, but get into aggregation, marketing, processing, opportunities for nursery production for sale. So there are a lot of things that can be done within the space.
Another thing that makes vegetable business so attractive for youth is that it's relatively technology intensive, innovation intensive. growing vegetables is much more challenging than growing maize, and growing maize has always been, or other food crops, staple crops have been associated with poverty and boring traditions, although they are not. But vegetables, it's a very fast pace of innovation going on. Talking about drip irrigation, but when you're talking about urban areas, there's something what we call hydroponics now. You can actually grow vegetables without soil, and it's very in different layers. So you can actually have on the fifth floor of a building that's not being used, you can have your drip irrigation, some media for roots without soil, and some fertility, use some fertilizers. And you can grow very high quality vegetables with relatively little investments. And I think those are things that we have to be very creative about and entice youth to capture those business opportunities.
And as you said, rural-urban migration is unstoppable, and people are migrating to urban areas at rapid speeds. What effect does this currently have for the demand for vegetable products, and how do you increase this demand given the transformation? You had said that there are a lot of ways and new innovative ways to look at growing vegetables, but how do we harness that in urban areas? As Victor had said, at times you don't need soil, you don't need large plots of land. So how does the regular individual or someone who is starting off in the vegetable and fruit business tap into urban development when it comes to fruit and vegetables?
In principle, you can invest, for example, in protected cultivation or greenhouses, in urban areas. That's becoming very popular. So that's one thing that can be done. The World Vegetable Center, there are things that we do in, for example, in grafting in tomatoes, which can be done in a greenhouse setting. And that's also quite a compliment. So those are some of the issues, and like Ralph told, we also looking at what we call mobile gardens, or an example for that is the use of sacks, or any object like used lorry ties or old lorry ties, sacks, old wooden boxes. You just put in a soil medium, and then you can grow. Ralph already mentioned hydroponics, which is just water, you don't even need soil. So all these innovations are coming, but also around these, what I call technical innovations, there's also the need to look at the organizational innovations, particularly on marketing. How do you aggregate produce so that they can meet high value markets like supermarkets, restaurants, where the volumes demanded are high and cannot be produced or supplied by one or two farmers.
And I think in addition to that, Victor, I think there's also opportunities for processed foods, because more and more in urban areas, people go for fast foods, processed food that require less cooking time. So this is an untapped potential for another vegetable business, vegetable supply, to dry vegetables, or to prepare them into other products such as biscuits or cakes or flour, so that people can easily boil something or heat something or add some cooked hot water, and they have a nutritious food. And I think more and more we see eating habits moving into that space.
And given the external factors such as climate change and pests, do you have any advice for fruit and veg producers who want to see greater production levels despite all of these challenges?
Yeah, sure. So climate change and pests, I mean, the pest is always a big issue. And it's not only an issue in terms of pests, they reduce the yields of the plant, but also if you use pesticide, obviously there's huge health issues associated with it. Health issues in terms of the person applying the pesticide to the crop and not protecting his or her own body, or the consumers eating the vegetables that have been sprayed with pests in an inappropriate, unprofessional way, or even safety in terms of environment, pesticide getting into the streams and other environment. So it's very important that people are educated, but that they also use a thing called integrated pest management. And it's actually a very interesting way of starting with scouting your crop on a daily basis, looking at what is affecting my crop, and does it really need spraying, or can I wait something, or does it need a chemical pesticide, or does it need can I apply something very mild, such as ordinary detergent? And so those are things that make vegetable production very interesting, reduce the cost, and increase safety.
And lastly, to close off, for those who may want to get involved in production and processing of fruit and vegetables in Africa that may not have an agricultural background, what would you say the first step should be in moving forward?
I think that first of all, what is critically important is the passion. Yeah, I think that opportunities exist for getting involved in the vegetable value chain, and then of course in integrating vertically, horizontally. But what is critical, and I've seen from experience, is the passion. Now, IIT, for example, has what we call a youth agripreneur program, where you have a lot of these young graduates coming in from school, and then they don't have jobs, and then they are now put on training, entrepreneurship, and then they have mostly on fish farming, vegetable production, all kinds of opportunities there. Now, what they found is that mostly those who are successful are not even those who pursued agriculture. They had people who had done other disciplines like medicine and pharmacy and things, who have been found to be most successful so far. And I think that what really drives these people is the passion that you need to have. So you may even have an agricultural background. Of course, that is very important, the technical background, know-how. But this must be complemented with passion, because it's a business, and you need to be able to anticipate risk and on all that issue. So just the knowledge in agriculture is not enough. But yes, awareness creation, and then all you need to do is to get the necessary training, and the training not just technically in agriculture, but also along institutional innovations like marketing options, produce aggregation, and how you can put the whole thing together as a business. But of course, there are specific skills that you require when it comes to things like doing integrated pest management as one of the things for food safety that we just spoke about. So there you need particular skills. But of course, in terms of doing a business, you don't need to do that yourself. I'm talking here of somebody who wants to be an entrepreneur.
Yes, yeah, definitely. That both that passion and the technical parts. I think I would add that you have to, as a starter or as somebody who wants to persist in the vegetable business, one thing that is critical is water. Without water, you can't grow vegetables. So you have to invest in some kind of irrigation method so that you can actually grow vegetables throughout the year. Particularly, you can grow vegetables when the prices are high, when nobody else grows vegetables. Victor, you already mentioned collective action, collective marketing. I think working together, particularly when you're beginning, is very important. You want to market together so that you increase your bargaining power. Together, you're stronger than when you're alone. But also, you want to learn from each other. There's also some people who have found out some new technologies, or who have been able to overcome a certain problem with pests and diseases that you can learn from. And when you share those practices, you actually you're a couple of steps ahead, and it saves you a lot of problems yourselves and a lot of failures. Lastly, I would say networking, not only with other producers, but also with people who provide information, such as government services, private sector, and consumers.
Great. So passion, networking, partnering, and water. Those would be the highlights and the key things to ensure that anyone trying to engage in both the production and the increasing demand for fruit and vegetables need to engage in. Closing off, thank you to Victor and Ralph for this dynamic session, and we thank you for your time, and we look forward to engaging with you in the Nourishing Africa community in the future.
You're very welcome, and thanks for inviting us.
This has been a Nourishing Africa podcast. See you next time.